today has put together some incredible research on Bittensor itself to explain to you what does Bittensor do and how does it work. So I think this will be a fantastic education around the Bittensor ecosystem. So guys, how about it?
Go. Yeah, bitter. I will beep beep. Yeah, okay, it works now. Sleep. Everyone come take a seat. Very interesting presentation coming up. Rich guy. Me, Drew Manley, Jack Slosher over there, Axel, Shantam, and Jacob have spent the last 10 weeks researching Bittensor. We put together 6 or 7 research decks for you all to review and lay it. And we put together this generalized presentation about Bittensor in general. So show of hands, who thinks they know Bittensor? You. All right, all your hands are going to be up after this presentation. So be excited. Let's go. Jack, take it away.
All right, well, we're going to try to explain Bittensor in around 30 minutes. So let's not waste any time to your material. We are living through the next great human revolution. I'm sure many of you have already seen your lives change quite a bit in just the past few years since the introduction of AI. It's one of those rare moments in our society's history where we're seeing a fundamental shift in the processes. The question is not, will this revolution happen, but rather, who will control it? But this revolution is still in its infancy. We can see to the right, the capabilities of AI have been continually increasing, while on the left, the costs of inference continually decreasing. Both moving rapidly and showing no signs of slowing down. Nobody can say for certain the limit to which this technology is capable of. By the numbers, we see Bloomberg estimate an unreal 42% annual growth rate, absolutely dwarfing that of the US market. We see the UN expected to quadruple its share of the frontier tech market by 2033. Over 90% of executives have intended to increase expenditure on AI in just 3 years. And reputable estimates consistently evaluating the AI market at several $trillion by 2030. But to truly understand the AI market, it's important to understand the players at the top. And right now, this mostly consists of centralized AI organizations. Looking at Meta, OpenAI, and Google. They're centralized, meaning they have control over the data, the decision-making, and all the processes that go into creation of these models. And while they may have been the first to conquer the AI space, there are some inherent drawbacks to their centralized nature that may cripple them in the future of this revolution. All right. They control most of the profits right now, which makes meaningful competition for individuals nearly impossible. They lack transparency. They store user data. They have the ability to restrict users. Their incentives often are very profit-driven, which don't incentivize experimental updates. They have central failure points causing frequent outkeys and increase the model bias. And now we're going to talk about Bittensor. All right. Since the dawn of humanity, we've seen competition be a driving force behind innovation. We've seen capitalist systems break through the invention of the light bulb, the invention of the internet, within 1 century. Bittensor runs on that same principle, that competition breeds innovation. The core function of Bittensor lies within its ability to dynamically reward contributors based on the quality of their contributions. They believe that if you contribute more than your peers, you should be rewarded that much more. Bittensor is a decentralized, open source, and permissionless marketplace for AI-related commodities driven through incentivized competition. Decentralized meaning it's owned and operated by a network rather than a single profit-driven entity. This allows that network and the broader community to be that focal point served. It's open source, meaning all work is publicly available on Bittensor, which is extremely powerful for innovation, allowing users to build and borrow from each other. It's permissionless, meaning anyone worldwide can log onto the network and contribute, which is also extremely important, and it's a core belief of Bittensor that the quality of one's contribution comes first. The architects of Bittensor imagined it not to fill a niche, but to be the forefront, at the frontier of the AI revolution. They saw an absurd amount of compute power being essentially wasted on self-serving blockchains, and imagined a world where participating on a blockchain meant solving the world's problems. This is all possible through one of Bittensor's core innovations, which is human consensus. Oftentimes with AI, we see the quality of work is very subjective and hard to quantify. So when you want to reward the quality, it's important to have a way to quantify that. And human consensus allows that. It works by having a network of evaluators called validators, which individually assess the quality of all work submitted to the network. Now, these evaluations are all sent to Bittensor, where it algorithmically breaks down the quality of work based on an assessed algorithm of those evaluations. Then it dynamically rewards those contributions based on that assessed quality. It unlocks the true power of decentralized competition. Now we can see how Bittensor addresses those pitfalls from earlier. On Bittensor, profits are distributed according to the quality of contribution across the entire network. It's fully transparent and publicly available. It has no central repository of data, and thus no risk of user data being stored and sold. It's complete permissionless, meaning anyone can log onto the network and participate. Its subnet system allows for more experimental innovations. It has no central points and thus no risk of outages, and a decrease in model bias. But to truly understand how Bittensor works, it's important to understand the native token, tau. Now, on-chain, every interaction, whether it be fees, staking, emission, delegation, starts and ends with tau. It's important for emissions, which is that distribution of rewards based on that assessed quality of contribution. It's important for staking, which allows participants on the network to share in the growth of the network or individual subnets. It's important for governance, as the top staked tau accounts are the ones that get to decide and vote on the future of the Bittensor ecosystem. And now we're going to talk about subnets. So subnets take that competitive framework and align it towards solving a specific problem. So these problems can be anything from finding the most profitable trading signals to better developing an AI model. And their goal is to create an ecosystem where peers compete to contribute better towards solving that problem for a larger share of rewards. This consists of three main roles: being miners, validators, and owners. Now, each subnet varies their processes based on what they hope to achieve and the problems they hope to solve. As a basic workflow, this consists of the owners creating the architecture and setting the incentives of what they want to achieve, miners and validators then registering to that subnet, miners submitting work to that subnet based on what they hope to incentivize, validators independently assessing the quality of all that work submitted to the subnet, and human consensus algorithmically identifying those top performers and rewarding them accordingly. Getting a little bit deeper into how these subnet economies work, it's important to understand alpha tokens, which were introduced back in February with the dynamic tau upgrade. Now, each subnet on Bittensor has their own alpha token, or you can see listed right here, although it might be a bit hard to read. And they have two main purposes, which are staking, where owners of tau are able to share in the growth of these subnets through staking their tau into that subnet's specific alpha token, and as emissions, which are those rewards paid out based on contribution. Those are paid out, those are distributed based on the subnet that the miner validator registered to. Similar to Bitcoin, both tau and alpha only have 21 million tokens that will ever be released. They also follow a Bitcoin-like halving cycle with roughly every 4 years expected halving. Right now, 1 tau is minted per block. After the halving, that will be 0.5, 0.25, and so forth, which happens around every 12 seconds for an average of 7,200 a day. These are distributed across the network to the subnets based on the price of their specific alpha token. And the current split of emissions is 41% paid out to miners for contributing work, 41% to validators for evaluating that work, and 18% to the subnet owner. Now, there's plenty more to talk about with subnet economies we can't get into today, but if you have any questions, me or any of my colleagues, we'd be happy to answer. And I'll pass it over to Drew for governance and beyond.
I'm back. Governance is obviously super important to talk about when we have a protocol like Bittensor that has essentially 128 companies inside of the network. And as I'm going to walk through this architecture, you'll notice that it does have a centralized base, and this is to provide stability to Bittensor in its young ages. And they have came out and talked about this and say they're going to go fully on-chain in their governance process in the future. So right now, it's a 3-person triumvirate, all appointed by members of the Open Tensor Foundation that are drafting these proposals to make changes within the Bittensor ecosystem. And they then send these proposals to the Senate, and the Senate is made of the 12 top stakers on the Tau network. Then they vote on this proposal. If it's anything less than 50%, this proposal gets sent in the trash or back to the triumvirate to revise. If it goes above 50%, it's then executed on the Subtensor blockchain for transparency. Another fun part, miners and validators. Jack talked a lot about it in his section. I'm going to try and break it down even further. And obviously, this is a super complex topic. So I'm going to do my best to explain it really quick in this 5-step process that we've broken up here. It starts step 1, registration, fairly simple. You just give your hardware specs, your general metadata. It then goes into task assignment. So a validator will receive any sort of task from a user, and then they will then point this task to a miner to complete whatever this task may be. And I'll break apart what these tasks will look like in the context of some subnets later on in the presentation. So this is going to sound a little bit weird right now, but for a proprietary trading network, our task could be, what's the expected movements of Ethereum in the next hour, let's say. And then another subnet for 4gen, it could be create a cow with a top hat. And it sounds funny right now, but it'll make sense later in the presentation. Just trust me on this one. And then getting into step 2, it's the off-chain computation. All of the miners' tasks are done off-chain on their own compute power. And now it gets a little hairy. Validator scoring and evaluation. Obviously, when it's this free market that Bittensor has created, there's going to be a lot of worries about bias, cheating the system, etc. And this is where the brilliance of Bittensor comes in. And so this mechanism, alongside human consensus, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, is so brilliant. And I'm glad we don't have more time to talk about it because I couldn't really break down all the math that goes into this. But essentially, validators will score the miners on the accuracy to which they've intended to do whatever task that may be in the context of the subnet. And that's how the miners will get their emissions. But who is making sure the validators are being true to what they say? How are they not just rating the miners that they're with friends or maybe on their own compute in the other room higher than everybody else? they are also being held accountable. So let's say there's 10 validators, 9 of the 10 rates one miner at 0.8 out of 1, and 1 rates at 0.3. The person that rated at 0.3, their weight is going to go down in that, how it like measures out for the emissions system. And then going into UMA consensus, this is where the magic happens. Essentially, UMA consensus is this brilliant consensus mechanism that essentially makes sure everyone is playing fair all at the same time. And so it takes what I just talked about, and it manages all the emissions to give out equally to the validators and to the miners in terms of how much they provided to the incentive mechanism of that individual subnet. And now, future outlook. So let's take a look at a little bit of the data so far regarding the Bittensor ecosystem. And obviously these numbers are awesome, but I think these numbers go a little bit further when we actually took a deeper dive into the Bittensor ecosystem. So we had the privilege of talking to a lot of founders of these individual subnets, as well as just going in these different discords and interacting with the people at Bittensor. And what we've discovered is that it's this super tight-knit community, and I would even call it a family of people that are willing to hear each other out, all for the end goal of growing Bittensor to the moon. And this is what made me super bullish about the ecosystem and super excited for the future of it. And now the last part of the presentation, I promise, and also my favorite part, is we get to talk about the actual subnets. So if you remember 20 minutes ago, Jack was talking about the next human revolution. And if you remember, that was the AI revolution. And we've made some general groupings of some subnets that are popular on the Bittensor network. And obviously, this is not mutually exclusive. There are other subnets that fall into different groups. But data, inference, model training, and compute are all the biggest ones right now. And these are all going to be working together and doing well on their own. But data subnets are helping inference subnets are helping model training subnets, and et cetera, to all build this driving force to build this future of AI, like Jack was mentioning earlier. And now let's talk about some of our favorite subnets that are making real world impact. So let's talk about Gradients. So Gradients is essentially an AI decentralized training platform. You come to Gradients with your data, and then you can choose what kind of compute you would like to use to help train whatever it might be. And that's a super cool system. But what's even cooler is that it is 96% cheaper than model training versus Google, which is insane. It's just absolutely insane metric. The next one that I also love is TauHash. TauHash has revolutionized the way people are mining Bitcoin. Essentially, they've created this pool of compute where people can register on this subnet and give their compute to this pool. Then the pool then takes all this compute and uses it to mine Bitcoin. And this is great for two ways. One, within a couple months of launching, it's already gassed a 1% market share of global Bitcoin hash rate, which seems low, but we all know that's millions of dollars in Bitcoin built up over time. But also significantly lowers the barrier of entry for people to mine Bitcoin. I cannot just go home on my PC and mine Bitcoin. It would take millions of years for me to ever get any return. But I can go on this subnet and I can donate my compute and I can get proportional rewards to what I've given to this pool. This is my personal favorite subnet for multiple reasons. One is we got to meet the founder, Ben James, super stand-up guy. But essentially, they've created this software that I can type in any kind of text of any kinds, and it will make a 3D model of whatever that text was in under a minute. And it's super cool. If you remember a couple of minutes ago, I said the cow with the top hat thing. So I was able to make a cow with a top hat in a minute. It's super cool. We should have put one on the slide. It would have been awesome. And so in creating this software, they've almost accidentally created the largest public 3D asset library of models in the world right now, which is insane in a couple of months since its founding. And the last one we're going to talk about today is Score. And there's so many other subnets we would love to talk about. Just for the crunch of time, these are the 4 ones we're going to talk about. So Score is essentially software, and I love this because I'm an athlete as well, is you can upload any data or any video you have from anywhere between middle school baseball to Premier League level football, and you will value all of this film, and it will tell you every single data benchmark that you could possibly wish for. So you could get some 14-year-old's batting average, and you could also get the top speed of a Premier League footballer. And it really encompasses everything that you could possibly need from the scouting perspective. And this is super cool in theory, but it's also cool because it's already being used by massive football clubs around the world. And also, it's 99% cheaper than any other centralized athletic performance metric. And that's all that we had for you today. So thank you so much for listening. We'd love to chat more about anything Bittensor, so find us after, come chat. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. No, hopefully that was valuable for everybody. I think one thing that we've learned inside of Bittensor is when companies come to us now looking for money for starting their business, the first thing we say is, could we turn this into a Bittensor subnet? Could there be a subnet created around this company? And if it can that change how we fund this company, or if this company even needs any money? Could they generate their own rewards off of this? And could the community tell us if this was something that is worth investing into? So that's the venture model turns upside down inside of the Bittensor ecosystem. And when subnets launch, there's, unlike a pump.fund kind of thing where it starts low and it shoots up, it actually starts high and it comes down until it finds the market. So there's no way that people can get in early on these things. They have to wait until the market is at an opportune time to start buying the token. So it's a very interesting piece of this. But if you haven't looked at this, definitely should take a look at Tau and study the different subnets and how it's working. But now we're not going to keep you anymore. It's time to have some fun and socialize and join the cocktail party. So thank you for being with us today. Appreciate it. Thank you.